Hello my YouTube friends, it's me, your old buddy Magnum over here at Magnum Videos. As you can see, I have the Phantom setting here and we're going to talk about it, but we're going to discuss something about the actual flight characteristics and why the Phantom responds the way it does. So stick around. Alrighty, in order to explain this properly so that you get a good understanding of it, we need to talk about aerodynamics a little bit at the beginning. Now, as you can see, when you look at one of your Phantom propellers, you can see that there is a slant to this blade here, and the other side has a slant in the opposite direction. Actually, it's the same direction when it's spinning around. That's an airfoil. That's like a cross-section of an airplane wing. That gives it lift. Now, you'll notice that this is a black ring propeller, and this is a silver ring propeller. And if you notice, those slants go in opposite directions. And the reason they do is because this black propeller goes on the front left motor. This silver propeller goes on the front right motor. The silver propeller also goes on the rear left motor, and the black propeller also goes on the rear right motor. So the black propellers are on opposite corners. The silver propellers are on opposite corners. Why? The reason is simple. This propeller on the front left, on most drones, spin in a clockwise rotation, looking down from the top. So you've got a clockwise spin on this propeller, a clockwise spin on this propeller. You've also got a counterclockwise spin on this propeller and a counterclockwise spin on this propeller, so that you've got opposite directions on adjacent propellers. In other words, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. Now, that will come into play in just a moment. But first, we need to speak about a physical characteristic known as gyroscopic precession. And what that amounts to is that if you've got a spinning object attached to another object, the spin of this object has a tendency to turn the other object in the opposite direction. Think about a helicopter. You've got a rotor spinning on top. And if there wasn't a tail rotor, the body of the helicopter would be spinning in the opposite direction. The tail rotor holds the fuselage of the helicopter in position so it doesn't spin through gyroscopic precession from the big rotor on top. Okay? So remember that, because we'll talk about that in just a second when we get into the controls. Alrighty, let's talk about the axes that the Phantom moves through. First of all, you have the horizontal axis that runs across the craft. And if the aircraft moves along that axis, like so, that's called pitch. It also has an axis that runs longitudinally, from front to back, or from the nose to the tail, and when it spins along that axis, that's called roll. And it also has a vertical axis that goes down through the center, and when it spins on that axis, it's called yaw, like so. Now, in a previous lesson, we learned that the yaw is controlled by the left stick. Okay? Moving the right stick to the left or right also moves the craft sideways. The propellers cause that movement. And how that works is very simple. When you move the controller to the right, the left propellers spin at a faster rate, which causes the craft to roll. And when it rolls, it also slides along that axis. Okay? When you move the right controller to the left, it causes the right propellers to increase their speed, thus giving the craft more lift, so it moves along that way. When you push the forward stick, it sends a message to the rear propellers to increase their speed. They do, giving it more lift in the back, and it moves the craft along that direction. Alright, now let's discuss yaw. It's a bit more complicated than the pitch and the roll, but it's not that difficult to understand. If you remember, we had the black propellers on the left front and the right rear, and those both spin clockwise. So increasing the rotation speed of those in a clockwise manner will make the aircraft have a tendency to yaw in the opposite direction. So when you turn the stick to the left stick to the left, you are increasing the speed of the left front and the right rear, or the clockwise propellers, which gives the craft the tendency of yawing to the left. When you move the stick to the right, the counterclockwise propellers spin faster, which means that the craft will compensate by yawing to the right. So, there you have it. That's the basic physical and aerodynamic factors that are involved in your controls. So, the next time you go out, just to test it, take your Phantom up and then give it a hard right control movement on the right stick. When you do that, if you do it quickly, you'll notice that the craft will tilt up like that before it moves. And then if you give it left stick, it'll tilt up like that and then move back accordingly. So that's a test for you to try and see how it works for you. And I think that's it for today. Leave any questions or comments down below, and we'll be back on the airfield on the next episode. So until I speak with you again, even after that, you stay focused.